tayong bagong terminology, mga team live or team alive kasi meron din tayong team replay. Ayan ha, medyo we're sticking to some schedule na mukhang more, I don't know, tugma dun sa ating buhay, trabaho, mga responsibilidad. So medyo we're sticking to that. So thank you very much folks for joining us dito sa ating meta. Happy Independence Day. I hope nagmuni-muni kayo ukol sa ating bayan, nasaan na po tayo. Saan po tayo papunta? Kamusta na? Patapos na si Pangulong Duterte. Final days na of his administration. May papasok na bagong administrasyon. So let's see where that's going. Of course, last Saturday, guys, we had some quite serious discussions dito sa military hardware issues. Sabi ko nga sa inyo, I'm a geek, right? So ito yung Su-57, guys. Ito yung stealth fighter ng Russia. Obviously, dahil nga sa ginagawa ng Russia ngayon sa Ukraine, medyo hindi ko na masyado nilalabas to. May mixed feelings ako bigla dito, di ba? So nakikita mo, very realistic ang pagkagawa. Hindi ko pa nilagay yung mga missile systems and all. Obviously, medyo mabigat nga. Ito naman yung F-22 fighter, no? Yan ang ano. So kung manonood kayo ng Top Gun, medyo bias ang Top Gun kasi ang gusto ng Top Gun is more yung mga classics fourth generation fighters yung nakikita niyo dyan. Ano yan? This is, ito naman yung Tomcat na F-14, classic yan. Oo. Andyan yata yun dun sa first Top Gun, no? Anyway, so I'm just telling you, eto mga geeky style natin nga gano'n, it's not out of nowhere. Hindi lang ito yung binabasa lang ng blogs, but this is really a kind of a lifelong, I would say almost obsession, no? So salamat dun sa mga nakinig sa atin. So bago tayo pupunta ulit dito, ayan, hi sa mga friends natin from around the world. Meron na tayong friends from Luxembourg. Ayan, pumunta tayo dyan, mga rich people ng Luxembourg dyan. Napakaliit lang ng office ng Prime Minister though. Pumunta ako dyan from Brussels nung meron kaming meetings with European Union, EU, few years ago. Now, before I go to the foreign policy issue, at balikan ko yung issue ng neutrality, ng foreign policy natin, let me talk about a number of other important issues dito. Unang-una, ito yung gusto kong sabihin, no? Of course, I hope that Secretary Lorenzana is feeling well and has fully recovered. Uh, Let me tell you guys, ito kasing ayaw ko sa ating bansa, guys. So let me be very clear about this. In a way, tinuturing kong kaibigan si Secretary Lorenzana. In many ways, I'm not gonna say more, but you know, we have had extensive discussions and exchanges throughout the years, multiple interviews for GMA Network, for my works among others. He has been very accommodating. He's a very hardworking person. Mahal niya yung ating bansa. Marami siyang ginawa para sa ating bansa. So, kudos to you, Sir Lorenzana. And I'll discuss his legacy more kasi patapos na yung termino ng Duterte administration. And I'm not sure if he can still stay longer in his position in office, even though yun ang gusto ni Bongbong Marcos. Although it's potentially baka magstay siya a little bit longer just for a transition period. But anyway, let me tell you this, guys. We may have issues, criticisms ng iba't ibang presidente, iba't ibang administrasyon. Pero guys, ang pinakaayaw ko dito sa ating bansa pagdating sa mga political discussion is not only yung juvenile, puerile way of approaching geopolitical discussions, at yung purong semantics, purong posturing, purong mga big terms pero hindi naman ma-explain na mabuti. Kaya nga, di ba, last meeting guys, binirek down natin yung neutrality. Anong pinagsasabi ng neutrality? Ito po yung nangyari. Ito yung voting record natin sa Ukraine. Ito yung sanctions na pwede mangyari natin sa atin if mag-import tayo ng armas sa Russia. Meron tayong treaty alliance with US. You cannot have it all. So, hindi ito, you know what I'm saying? That's the problem. Purong semantics lang, napakahilaw at mababa yung level of analysis ng foreign policy, political issues. Kaya nadadala lang sa posturing. So, kaya nga I was deconstructing ito yung claim na mag-neutral tayo. So, I'll go more to that because incoming National Security Advisor Clarita Carlos and a former professor of mine also has made some bombshell statements on you know on her vision of geopolitics in the region, etc. And minsan parang feeling ko medyo in the air masyado. So kailangan talaga natin i-pin down itong mga concept na to and examine it in light of realities on the ground and existing legal and strategic entanglements and linkages that we already have as a country. So hindi ito pwede idaan lang dun sa mga big terms. And big terms mean nothing unless you can properly operationalize them, explain them, etc. well, hindi naman tayo nagyayabang, but we have written thousands of articles on international affairs and all. We have written multiple books. So hindi ako nagyayabang, I mean, that forced me to really pin down these ideas because there's no way you can write a 300, 400 page book, though. Kung hindi mo talaga gamay yung issue na yan. And these works are gonna go through peer review. These are academic publications. I'm not even talking about the journal articles, etc., which go through double, blind. I mean, it's a double blind peer review. Hindi po biro yan. It takes a year or so to get it just published. Forget about writing process, no? So anyway, so I'm gonna break this down a little bit further later on. But before that, as I said, uh, kudos to Secretary Lorenzana. And I'll talk more about actually Secretary Lorenzana first before going to Clarita Carlos. Because ito guys ang napansin ko na napakapangit sa ating bansa na ito yung galing na pangit Nang to emphasize yung achievements ng isang admin, uh, ang gagawin mo ay sisirain mo yung dating administration. Now, obviously, kung may kapalpakan na nangyari sa mga dating administrasyon na verified objectively, kung talagang, I mean, grabe na, di ba? Balahura yung dating administration, magnanakaw, diktador, etc. Well, you pointed out, hindi po paninira ang magpo-point out ng facts. Alright? It's like, huli yung magnanakaw, gano'n. Tapos sabi ba, dali natin, paninira lang yan, ayoko pumunta sa korte. You know what I'm saying? You cannot do it like that, alright? Kung talagang kalokohan ang ginawa, you have to call it out. But, when good things have also been accomplished under previous administration, wag naman masyado yung credit grabber na sisirain mo pa yung dating administration para lang you can grab the credit 100% for your own. So kanina, medyo napaisip ako, medyo nagpakamot ako. Kasi guys, may mga Facebook pages dyan na on the surface, they look that they're just for economics, etc. Pero pag titignan mo, puro mga ganyan. Dolomite, ganon. So anyway, alam mo naman ako, pumapatol din ako just for fun. Sila rin pumapatol sa akin, kilala naman tayo ng mga yan. So, kanina, nag-post yung isa na proud sila. Tsaka, parati pinopost nila yung mga parang halos, mirror lang siya ng mga ano yung pinopost ng Department of Transportation so parang pinagmamalaki nila na patapos na daw, okay? I have to confirm that. Yung subway na ginagawa dito sa Metro Manila, which will be the first ever sa Pilipinas, which is weird because sa ibang bansa na developing countries, multiple subways na kompleto na nila. Right? Hindi lang sa major cities, multiple cities. But yung Vietnam ngayon, medyo ahead of us. But in fairness naman, meron naman tayong yung MRT sa taas. Pero yung subway kasi next level yun Yung level of engineering na kailangan. At saka the fact that wala kang kukuha na space sa taas, puro sa baba lang yun, di ba? At of course, if you do it proper engineering, it's earthquake proof, it's flooding proof, etc. Nagawa yan sa mga iba't ibang bansa around the world. Anyway, we're moving in the right direction as it patapos na. So ako naman, parang sabi ko, wait lang. Before mag-thank you lang tayo kay Tatay Digong and Department of Transportation at sa kaban ng bayan. By the way, yung pera yan galing sa atin, hindi galing sa ano. Mag-thank you din tayo sa Japan. In fact, yung first comment ko is, nasaan yung China? Diba? Pinagmamalaki ni Tatay yung China. Nasaan yung mga big ticket infrastructure investment ng China? Nasaan yung $24 billion na sinabi China? So, una nag-comment ako na gano'n. So, comment na naman yung mga, alam mo na, mga Dolomite Club. Alright, mga kameta. Ako naman, okay. Sabi ko, by the way, let's thank also Japan. Just to emphasize that Japan is actually a reliable partner. Hindi sila nagnanakaw ng ating mga isla at saka mga ating mga isda dyan sa West Philippines. Ngayon, obviously, we can talk about Imperial Japan Second World War. Ibang usapan yan. Pero I'm talking about today, right? 21st century po ang pinag-usapan natin. Ang Japan po talaga tumutulong sa atin at malaking investment nila sa ating infrastruktura. Salamat sa kanila. Pero salamat din kay Pinoy. In fairness to him, actually, it was under President Aquino that itong subway, yung mga preliminary key agreements were signed. And this actually happened. How do I know that? I actually covered this thing. I covered this thing as a global columnist. So ito yung APEC Summit in 2015. Alam niyo yung sobrang traffic na talagang binalahura ang administration dati. But anyways, dito kasi sa meeting na sa 2015 pa lang, ito na guys, meron ng agreement na nangyari. Nag-meet sila Abe and Pinoy. And Japan committed 241.9 billion. Alright, almost $5 billion po dun sa iba't ibang proyekto, no? Okay, so ito yung base sa report interaction nito Progress made on the roadmap meant to improve and modernize transportation in Metro Manila by 2030 was one of the high points of a bilateral meeting late Thursday, November 19, this is 2015, between President Benigno Aquino III and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Dun sa mga projects, kasama din dito, of course, involved dito yung Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA-I, Mega Manila Subway and New Manila International Airport projects, B, Metro Manila Priority Bridges Seismic Improvement Project, and C, North-South Commuter Railway Project. This was signed under Pinoy. Don't make it look as if this was all signed under Duterte, etc. Okay? So, malamang, alam nyo naman, when you make a project, the most important part is not only the implementation, but also getting the project approved and getting the funding. That basic MOU, the basic agreement was signed not under Tatay Digong, it was signed actually under President Aquino. Oh, yung isang troll ka dyan, ha? Uy, Edward Tan, andyan ka na naman, little boy. Alam natin, little ka talaga. Balikan ka na mamaya. Okay. Inggit ka lang, siguro pangit ka. Okay, mamaya na tayo. So ito klaro ka lang. Na-hurt siya na-hurt Alam talagang troll na troll talaga yung Edward Tan na yan. Balikan ko talaga yan. Yung subway project na yan, paano pa ng Aquino? Ako naman, kudos to Duterte administration for continuing the project, etc., etc. Pero guys naman, if you're gonna get the credit, wag naman credit grabbing tapos sisirain mo pa yung dating administration. Bakit ka mo? Because bigla itong mga ehenyo ng kabila, nagpo-post sila ng dyan na, pero nung 2014, kinancel naman niya. Parang, first of all, I'm not sure ano naman ka-fake news na naman kalokohan yan. Pangalawa, ito na nga, 2015, na-sign na itong mga agreements. At ito na nga, i-google nyo lang, di ba? So yun ang problema ko, binabastos yung dating administration, even though they did the preliminary work. Ako naman, kudos din sa Duterte administration for continuing that. Pero, alam mo, there are levels of credit grabbing. One level is you just deny completely contribution ng dating administration. Pangalawa, next level credit grabbing. Sisirain mo pa yung dating administration, which actually secured the funding in the project to begin with. Alright? To begin with. Okay? And yes, kudos to President Duterte for having a strong relationship with Japan. Pinag-usapan natin konti previously. But President Aquino actually visited Japan more than any other, I think, Filipino president before him, right? Or he had the closest relationship with Japan. And next speech pa siya dun sa Japanese Diet, which is their parliament, right? Hindi yung diet. I mean, diet yung parliament nila. So, marami sa mga projects ng Japan nowadays, salamat Pinoy. And you know what? What's interesting is that sana naman itong mga trolls at mga propagandists or mga bayaran, whatever, mga blogger, whatever you want to talk about them, sana naman, take a page out of the playbook of Secretary Dominguez of Finance. Pati nga siya, aminado siya na grateful siya sa Aquino and Arroyo administration for the macroeconomic reforms that gave them the budget. Yung ginagastos ng Duterte administration sa mga project na yan, dapat magpasalamat sila sa mga dating administration na pinalaki yung budget, kaya nga sila may budget eh. You can have all the plans in the world, but kung wala kang budget, meaning yung budget na nakuha mo sa dating administration, wala ka rin magagawa. Wala ka rin magagawa. At ngayon, si Marcos will also inherit lahat ng utang na accumulate natin under Duterte. Tignan natin mamaya anong gagawin nilang dyan. Alam na this. Hintayin lang natin yan. But you know what I'm saying? Give credit where credit is due, right? And in this case, credit to the Duterte administration for getting the projects moving forward, but wag naman bastusin na gumawa ng fake news at i-disregard yung contribution ng dating administration. Diba? Especially if sa ilalim ng dating administration actually na secure yung funding na yan at nagsimula yung projects na yan. And guess what? This is interesting. That's not the only major project na papatapos under Duterte or natapos under Duterte na actually yung funding and the basic feasibility studies, kumbaga lahat ng fondasyon at blueprint ay na-secure na ng Aquino administration. So yun po yung problema natin. Now, I understand yung criticism kay Aquino that he was parating attacking Arroyo, etc. I understand that. But my point is, kung may nagawa naman maganda si Pinoy, huwag nyo naman bastusin ng ganun, guys. I mean, some respect naman. After all, lahat yan naging presidente natin. And speaking of respect, well, as far as Pinoy is concerned, hindi siya nagmura, hindi siya nagbastos, andun siya sa gobyerno, etc. I criticized him for mga sapano. I had a long conversation with him on that issue. I criticized him for a lot of things, for not engaging. But, guys, kung may ginawang tama, huwag naman bastusan, di ba? Or huwag naman fake news para i-deny yan. Otherwise, yung credit grabbing level nyo, next level na yan, di ba? Umayos naman kayo. Kaya ang sabi ko, buti nga si Secretary Dominguez, ito, pakita ko sa inyo. Ito, si Dominguez mismo nagsabi, alright? Yung golden age of infrastructure natin Dapat thankful tayo yan. Thankful tayo sa dating administration. Under Aquino lang, yung budget natin nag-doble, triple pa nga. By some counts, almost quadruple, which rarely happens because of proper saving, expanding the tax base, economic growth, etc. I'm not saying lahat na yan ay dahil kay Aquino lang. Of course, Aquino also benefited from macroeconomic reforms in the past. But don't make it look as if yung admin mo lang gumawa na lahat when in fact you benefited from the budget, from the hard work and discipline of previous administrations. Wag naman ganon, di ba? Oo. So, yun lang naman sa akin sana. And so, speaking of that, speaking of giving credit where credit is due, ito si Dominguez nagsabi mismo, sabi niya, past admins laid groundwork for golden age of Philippine economy. Ito resibo, post ko sa inyo, Philippine Star yan, hindi ito So, ayon sa kanila, the previous administration had set the groundwork for the Philippine economy to experience a golden age, although I'm not sure, this is before the pandemic, so iba nang usapan yung paano na-handle ng government na ito. If you're experiencing golden age, this not happen overnight. It took a lot of work, yung sinabi ni Dominguez. At dito niya na praise yung finance nung dating administrations, including Benigno Aquino, for providing the country with, quote, a lot of cash savings. Ito, si Dominguez mismo nagsabi yan. Si Dominguez mismo nagsabi yan. I'll post it dyan, may resibo tayo. But more importantly, okay. So anyway, see, bati si Secretary Dominguez ng Finance, aminado siya, yung pera na ginagastos na, a lot of that is because of the good saving of the previous administrations, especially the Aquino administration oversaw a lot of growth and a lot of saving. Now, ang problema naman of course ng Aquino administration is that they did not get their own projects get going earlier, kaya nga nagkaroon ng backlash ng 2016 against them. Pero yun nga lang sa akin, if credit grabbing style tayo, huwag naman yung lantaran na ganun, di ba? Okay. So yan ang isa sa pinakaayaw ko talaga ng ugali sa atin, na nagiging parang bawat administration may sariling version ng kasaysayan, at yung papunta na may bago ng papasok na administration, nako, biglang iba na yung 1970s, 80s na natin, iba na naman mga talano, history na naman tayo niyan. At yan ang problema natin. We can never move forward kung parating ganyan. Yung binababo yung kasaysayan, binababo yung dating administration para lang you show yourself that you're better, etc. Now, as I said, personally, I think Ramos did better than many of the recent presidents, but we can debate about that. Again, I'm saying, considering what Ramos inherited from all those coups and wars and conflict after the collapse of the Marcos regime, and of course the Korea administration had to deal with a lot of problems, etc. So nakulang talaga sila. Kaya it was left to Ramos to stabilize the economy, to stabilize the country, to end the coup d'etats, to consolidate our democracy. Pinag-usapan din natin yung mga issues na yan, democratic consolidation, etc. Okay? So clear. Secretary Dominguez mismo ng administration na ito ay nagbigay ng credit for the savings, etc. ng dating administrations, and resibo 2015, before Tatay was even, I don't know, on our radar, no? Well, he was on my radar for you know why, but na-sign na yan eh. Tapos na-approve na yung project. Kumbaga, you're just implementing what the other ones are. Parang ito parang nag-apply ako ng loan, kinuha ko na yung loan, tapos ikaw na nagbe-benefit ng loan para gumawa ng bahay. But nonetheless, I did all the hard work, the groundwork to secure the loan, to make sure credit worthy tayo, mataas ang credit rating natin, kinausap natin ng Japan, make sure yung JICA, ma-appreciate nila yung project ko. All that stuff is hard, guys. Hindi yan madali, okay? So wag bastos, diba? At saka, wala, hindi na tayo mag-move forward kung parating ganyan lang style natin. Fake news natin dating admin ang babastusin kahit may ginawa naman tama. Alright? Okay, tapos ito pa nga, nagpo-post sila ng mga kapalpakan ng dating administration, pero they conveniently forget about 10 years of Arroyo and 2-3 years of Estrada, who by the way are allies of President Duterte. Parang that's very convenient, right? Like suddenly you forget everything that happened under Arroyo, and then you blame Aquino for everything that wrong went under him. Even though Aquino also inherited a lot of mess from Arroyo, right? In terms of corruption, in terms of yung overly friendly natin sa yung NBNZT. Naku, ang daming problema nun, di ba? Okay. And in the same way, Arroyo also suffered. I mean, actually, you look at it, it started talaga with ERAP eh. Kasi inaayos na nga ni Ramos, pumasok si ERAP, gulo. Arroyo coming 10 years, gulo. So Aquino came to clean it up, he couldn't fix it all, and then Duterte comes and blames Aquino for everything, forgetting everything that came before it. I mean, what kind of is that, diba? Walang mangyari sa atin, ganyan tayo forever. Now, speaking of giving credit where credit is due, and this is where you see, I don't if you did a good job, I'm gonna credit you. I don't care which administration you come from. Kung maganda yung ginawa mo. And I can easily say, I mean, there are a number of cabinet members and sub-cabinet members in the Duterte administration that I like, no? Carl Chua, for instance, a good friend of ours, among others. I can mention a number of people, folks in the Department of Finance, people. You can see I have interviewed a number of them, really good people. But for me, Secretary Lorenzana is really my favorite for many, many reasons, right? But the primary reason is because he was the one who held the line. Wag na lang, okay, hold the fort na lang. Medyo Rappler-ish yung hold the line. Held the fort. Even when Tata was so like, I love China, blah, 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 he was the one who nagbubuking dun sa mga kababalagan na nangyayari sa West Philippine Sea. Now, of course, sometimes, of course, he's in the cabinet of Tatay Digong. You have to be diplomatic. You're a little bit adjusting the... But the message was sent already. In fact, Secretary Lorenzana openly called what China has been doing in the West Philippine Sea as bullying. All right? For me, that's a big deal. Considering yung presidente mo, I love, love, love China and everything like that. That was a big, big, big deal. All right? So, on China, he held the fort on many instances. Yes, he said sometimes these things about arbitration, about something, but come on, you're missing the point. At the end of the day, he cannot completely 100% contradict Duterte. Otherwise, you cannot stay in the admin, right? But when he had to, he called out China, and that's an important thing, all right? And and I'm sure you haven't even followed what he has done. So that's one thing. So this is July 2013. Lorenzana admits China's bullying. All right, bullying. All right, so he openly called them out. Okay, and he criticized China's blah 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 about, oh, they're doing innocent and all of that. Ilang beses niya na call out yan. In fact, Lorenzana said that he was willing to even send a warship, right? Set of warships to defend yung ating mga claims dyan sa West Philippine Sea, etc. But someone told him not to, and you can guess sino yung mga yan, di ba? So, that's one thing. The pangalawa, yung ginawa ni Lorenzana is, and not to mention yung Reed Bank incident, nalaman natin dahil kay Lorenzana, di ba, nag-issue siya ng very, very strongly worded condemnation nung Chinese militia vessel, suspected Chinese militia vessel na nagpaano sa Gemver, di ba? Naalala mo yan? Saan natin nakuha yung news na yan? First of all, it came from Lorenzana. Now, again, we can talk about what happened later, but kumbaga, the genie was out of the bottle. Kaya nga nalaman natin yung nangyari doon. And it came from Lorenzana. Siya ang nag-booking doon sa nangyari. Right? Now, so this is a very important thing. But number two, let me go even to more concrete, literally concrete ways that Lorenzana has been very helpful to our country. So number two, kumbaga medyo tribute ko na rin sa kanya if he's about to retire na soon. Kasi patapos ng Duterte administration. Although I still don't know sino magiging next DND. If Gibo, he has to wait 1 year. So, sinong in the meantime, diba? Or is it gonna be someone military also? Hindi binigay kay Sara eh. So, let's see. Let's see what's the priority of Marcos on this front. Although I have my own speculation about that. Educated guess. Okay. So, the second one, which is very important, is dun sa West Philippines mismo. And this is where I criticize the Aquino administration. I raised this directly with dating Foreign Secretary Albert de Rosario. Not now, not the past 5 years. I raised it when he was the Foreign Secretary. In a meeting we had there, I think Babe Romualdez also was there, among other people who would later on become our ambassador to US, etc. I openly said, bakit hindi natin binibuild up yung ating mga facilities dyan sa West Philippine Sea? Right? Because technically speaking, if you're not changing the nature of disputed islands, meaning yung atolls and rocks ay hindi mo ginawang giant islands katulad ng mga fake islands ang ginagawa ng China, right? Then that's technically not inconsistent with international law, right? Sabi ko, bakit yung mga ano natin, yung mga airstrip natin dyan, bakit mukhang squatter lang yung mga ano natin dyan, mga facilities natin dyan sa Spratlys, sa Calayan Group of Islands. Ba't yung mga Vietnamese nga, meron na sila mga renewable energy sites, yung Malaysia sa layang-layang, meron sila parang golf course halos na eh. May mga swimming pool, ganun. Yung China, my goodness, gumawa na sila ng mega mall na dyan yata sa gitna ng West Philippine Sea. So bakit tayo pinabayaan natin? 1970s pa lang may airstrip na tayo. So in fairness, Secretary Lorenzana was the one who moved forward. The Aquino administration was too scared because they said, oh, we have to have moral high ground, we have arbitration award, blah, blah. And I said, parang, that's not how you defend us. You have to move on multiple fronts simultaneously. Di ba? Again, as I said, it's like a Rubik's Cube. You cannot just fight the arbitration fight. Dapat, but yung fight sa on the ground, dapat tuloy-tuloy din dyan, di ba? So that's one thing that we have to keep in mind. No? So yan ang sinasabi ko. So you see, I'm criticizing different administrations dun sa pagkakulang nila because none of the administration really got it fully right. And I cannot blame them. Mahirap yung situation talaga. Mahirap talagang kalabanan ng China. I mean, it's a really complicated situation, so I don't want to be unfair. But speaking of that, feeling ko yun ang pagkakulang ng Aquino administration. On the ground, hindi natin na-develop yung facilities natin, hindi natin na-maintain, etc. May mayor pa nga tayo doon sa Pag-asa, pero yung ano mo, yung airstrip mo, wala na yung asphalt mo, may cracks na, baka hindi na makaland yung ano mo, yung water desalination facilities, may kulang, parang squatter yung iba doon sa may, the second Thomas Shaw. Ayungin, grabe, di ba? Hindi naman pwede yan. Sana naman matino yung facilities. Guess who tried to fix that? And who has fixed that in many ways? Lorenzana. Lorenzana visited Pag-asa multiple times even when China said no. Even if they said no, this will be provoked. He said, no, I'm gonna go there. In fact, once he even went there with former AFP chief Anyo, Secretary Anyo, who's now, of course, our DLG secretary. So they went there. They asserted our claims on the ground, literally there. No, so maybe on the arbitration award they were not as open and gung ho as the Aquino people, but on the ground they did their job. In fairness to them, kaya yung mga facilities natin sa Pag-asa, medyo mas maayos na ngayon. At tuloy-tuloy na itong effort na yan. So I think that was one very concrete contribution. Thanks to Secretary Lorenzana. I'm not sure I'm going to give credit to President Duterte on that, but clearly I think Lorenzana was pushing with that for that, and he had the support of AFP and other relevant agencies. The other one is also Secretary Lorenzana. In fairness, ito speaking again of yung mga military modernization and all, sa ilalim ng Duterte administration and of course leadership of Lorenzana in the DND, natuloy po yung three-phase, three horizons AFP Revised Modernization Act na pinasa ng Aquino. So kudos to the Aquino administration for beginning this process of modernizing our AFP 2011 pa lang, right? And also kudos to the Duterte administration for continuing this process, second phase, including getting new frigates, yung Rizal, BRP, and then of course moving ahead with getting choppers, including Blackhawks. I think we got from Poland, and then now we're moving towards acquiring fourth generation fighters. Hopefully F-15 or F-16, but maybe at least a sub. So a lot of that, the ground. So Aquino got the ball rolling. We spent $1 billion or so under Aquino, and then we spent another $1 billion or so, based on some estimates I've seen, under the Duterte administration on enhancing our defensive capabilities. And as I said, malamang wala tayong kakayan na tapatan ng China head to head. Malaking bansa talaga yan eh. But we can be a porcupine, right? We can become at least a poison shrimp if we develop minimum deterrence capability. And don't worry, we'll discuss that even more in details because there's in fact a blueprint of how the Philippines can get minimum deterrence capability. There was a report by Center for New American Security. Pretty smart guys. They calculated with just over $1 billion, we can actually have enough number of submarines, frigates, and jet fighters to have minimum deterrence capability. Hindi yung tapatan mo in China, pero you have just enough capabilities para para may bully sa eskwela. Ang laki ng katawan, syempre hindi mo matapatan. Pero kung may kakayahan na ako na i-hurt siya, even though mas hurt ako sa kanya, he'll think twice before bullying me. Like, sige, kaya mo ako, gets, pero in the process, I'm gonna give you a black eye. I'm gonna, kick you some, I'm saying, like, it goes down to it, I'm still gonna lose, but I'm gonna give you really a bloody nose, right? So, yun yung idea ng minimum deterrence. So, yung bully, magdadalawang isip. Kasi kung wala kang leverage, mag-usap na lang tayo, mag-usapan tayo, tayo mabugbog ka ng bully, mabubully ka talaga. But if you have some minimum deterrence, magdadalawang isip yung kalaban mo, di ba? So in fairness to Secretary Lorenzana, they oversaw the second phase. Yes, there have been delays, a lot of delays, and guess who pointed that out? Amy Marcos sa Senado, right? But at least na tuluyan, kaya hopefully under the Marcos Jr. administration, makuha na natin yung mga aeroplano na kailangan natin, guys. And also, yung third phase ng AFP modernization, right? The other area where Secretary Lorenzana also has been very, very helpful is yung support niya for the Mindanao peace process, right? He comes from Mindanao. Yes, Ilocano siya. I mean, sometimes we speak Ilocano, etc. To each other. Like a lot of people in Mindanao, their background, a lot of them they came from Ilocos, right? Including some of my distant relatives that back in the day they were going to Mindanao. Panahon ni Marcos yan, and you know the context, right? Okay. So he's from Mindanao. He understands the situation and he supported the peace process dun sa BARM, etc. And he understands the situation on the ground. So that was very important because if yung Secretary of Defense mo or National Security Advisor mo ay medyo gusto nila gera, ayaw nila dun sa peace process, magkakaproblema yan. And some would argue that the reason why hindi na ituloy yung mga peace negotiations dun sa mga komunista is because ayaw na ang defense establishment, right? But dun sa bar, sa ating mga Muslim na kapatid, some good things happen on that front, right? In fact, I also heard some stories, medyo heartfelt stories na nung panahon na nagkaroon ng yung sa Marawi, di ba? Maraming sira and all. You know what happened? Secretary Lorenzo actually personally went there dun sa camp. And may nagkwento sa akin na nagwawala daw yung mga tao. Siyempre, frustrated sila. Paano yan? Reconstruction. And Lorenzana stayed there and talked to them. Na hindi siya yung mayabang na, oh, sino ba kayo? Hindi siya ganun. He stayed there, he talked to the people, he tried to comfort them, he tried to say, please give us time, etc., etc. Now, hindi na nakasalanan yung kapalpakan ng mga ibang agencies who are in charge of reconstruction of Marawi. But you could clearly say at least Secretary Lorenzana was in the heart, was in the right place, and he has the empathy for Muslim brothers, his sister, perhaps in ways that maybe a lot of his predecessors didn't have at the same level, at least, right? Let's not be prejudicial to others. But do you get what I'm saying? So, in fairness to Secretary Lorenzana, he has done a lot of good for the country. And the problem is that if nandun ka lang sa partisan echo chambers, ang makikita mo lang is pure negative and pure positive. But if you just try to understand what Secretary Lorenzana has been doing despite or in spite of everything, in fairness sa kanya, he did good in terms of calling out China, even when President Duterte was all pro-China and love, love, love. Number two, he was very important in terms of strengthening yung ating position dyan sa West Philippine Sea, ayusin yung ating pasilidad sa Pag-asa. He visited that Pag-asa multiple times, even though sabi ng China, huwag kang pumunta dyan. Kahit nung dumadaan na sila papunta dyan, yung mga Chinese sa Subi Reef, yung malapit na isla sa Pag-asa, nire-radio sila, in-intimidate sila. Wala siyang pake, go siya straight and back, di ba? Even though there's a threat, they could be even shut down, right? It could be an international crisis. Tuloy pa rin siya. Number three, doon sa AFP modernization na sinimulan ni Aquino noong 2011. So yung revised AFP Modernization Act. Kasi yung first was under Ramos. We can talk about that in a different mga ka-meta, mga team live. But in fairness to Secretary Lorenzana, he did something very good there because he continued at least in the second phase or so. And even nung nagkaroon ng pandemic, medyo tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung process, although it's significantly slowed down. And Amy Marcos actually pointed that out during one of the Senate hearing discussions, right? Alam ko yan because I've been covering all of this. I've been writing on these issues throughout the years. So yun. And number four, sa Mindanao. Doon nakikita natin talaga yung puso ni Secretary Lorenzana is in a good place. He really was empathetic to the cause of our Muslim brothers and sisters and the need for ending conflict in Mindanao because it was hurting everyone. Our Muslim brothers and sisters more than anyone else, but also our Christian brothers and sisters in Mindanao, the Bisaya, Ilocano, Waray, whatever yung background, but also our entire country. Kasi guys, ito gets kasi ni Secretary Lorenzana na kung may giyera tayo sa loob, hindi natin kaya yung mga kalaban natin outside dahil distracted tayo. Right? And this was a problem for a very, very long time. Dahil sa itong gulo sa Mindanao, etc., itong mga insurgencies, etc., our national security strategy was too inward looking, too focused on army, under investments in navy and air force. So now sana finally we can move in the right direction so that we can go to the fourth generation and hopefully 4.5 generation. Medyo fifth generation, medyo baka down the road pa yan. But we have to consolidate fourth generation and 4.5 generation. In fact, I know that back in Ramos' time, we were supposed to get F-18 fighters, yung Hornets, no? But yun nga, nagkaroon na Asian financial crisis, budget issues, then ERAP came, Arroyo came, blah, blah, blah. But in fairness, since Aquino and continuing under Duterte, there has been a push towards developing yung tinatawag na minimum deterrence capability for us to be a poison shrimp or better if we can become a porcupine. Yung ganyan, supersonic, sonic, all right? Hedgehog strategy, right? So yun ang sinasabi. So in fairness, kudos to Secretary Lorenzana for doing those things. All right, okay. Now actually, I was hoping to transition now to Clarita Carlos and all, especially on some of her comments more recently, but maybe we'll leave it for another meta, no? Tomorrow, because I have a column tomorrow coming out, guys, with Philippine Daily Inquirer. Please check it out, yung weekly column ko. It will be about this issue of national independence. We will start from Manuel Quezon, right, to Quirino, to Manuel Quezon, Rojas, Quirino, then Marcos, then Duterte, then Marcos Jr., right? So and then there's Aquino also there, senior Aquino, yung Aquino, I mean the father, not the son, who will be also there in the mix, in the discussion, in the column, right? I think we can use that as a kind of a launching pad for further discussion dito sa issue na yan. But yun yung sinasabi ko, guys, have you seen it? We should give credit where credit is due, whichever administration. Kung may matino kang ginawa, you deserve it, right? And wag sanang bastusin yung mga dating administration just to make yourself look good. be competent on your own terms, give credit to others, and then lampasan mo pa sila at mas mahusay ka. Then, believe ako sa'yo. Pero yung sirain mo yung dating administration lang, tapos ikaw, palpak ka rin, tapos sisirain mo lang sila para lang, in comparison, you look more competent, parang, ano yun eh, parang bottomless ice din, straight to the bottom. Ay, hindi na pwede yan, guys. Hindi na pwede yan. Adult na tayo. We have to adult up our politics. At yun po yung talagang kulang sa atin. Napaka-juvenile, puerile yung level of political discussion natin. And unfortunately, I'm very, 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 very disappointed with some of the style na sirain mo yung dating administration just to make yourself look good. Now, that goes for everyone, but minsan kasi may mga admin talagang mahusay talaga sa credit grabbing next level na eh. Kaya nga I cited, in fairness, Secretary Dominguez of the Finance Department, who said openly that he's grateful to previous administration, including and especially Aquino administration, for all the savings and money and all that they were able to pass down to the next administration to develop these infrastructure projects. All right? So lahat yan nandito, may resibo na tayo. Oh, ito So again, ito, binigyan for providing the economy with a lot of cash savings. So yun yung term mismo ni Dominguez. All right? And speaking of the subway, sana matapos na ito soon, di ba? I'm sure i-claim ni Marcos Jr. yan kasi matatapos under him eh. So sabi na, paano ni Marcos na naman natapos yung subway? Pero actually, 2015 pa lang, naayos na yung funding and everything. With JICA, Aquino administration, and then nung bumisita si Prime Minister Shinzo Abe dito noon sa APEC Summit. Alright? Yan ang problema sa atin, wala tayong longitudinal analysis eh. Sira-siraan lang, partisan lang, bastusan lang. Walang mangyayari sa atin, ganyan lang yung level of discussion natin. But we have to really break it down and look at it per administration. And you saw it a while ago. Sinabi ko, ito yung kulang ng Aquino administration sa West Philippine Sea, ito yung inayos ni Duterte, ito yung maganda dito. We have to do it like that. Proper comparative analysis in the broader perspective of things, right? That's what you're forced to do when you do academic work, when you do, proper, publications, writings. Pero kung ano lang, alam niyo na, lamano, talano, ganyan style, wala na, diba? Kung mga blogger style lang, anything goes. Yan ang problema ko kasi dyan eh. Now, there are also, of course, bloggers and all doing good job, but of course, I'm not referring to them. You know what I'm referring to. Anyway, okay. It's been nice. Alright, thank you very much sa mga tanong nyo, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yan. Magpakabait na ako. Ayan, happy Independence Day, And my best wishes to Secretary Lorenzana for a swift recovery. And I hope, as I've mentioned, he will shepherd an efficient, good transition to the next Defense Secretary, who is not Sara Duterte. So let's hope it's someone who really has a proper background in national defense and will defend our national interest, right? Including maintaining strong ties with our traditional allies and standing up to bullies, but also engaging with our neighbors, big or small, to make sure meron tayong effective communication channels. Alright? Okay. Alright. Ayan na. Burger. Ano daw yung hamburger? Yan. Ayan. Thank you kay Australia Ron for your support. Thank you kay Mirth. Ayan. 100%. Thank you kay Katrina. Thank you kay Mia. Yan. Thank you kay Mitch again for the support. Yan. May mga regulars tayo dito. Para na tayong, alam mo yung mga pub lang na bar, may mga regular customers na. Kahit anong oras, basta. Andyan sila, yan. May mga regulars na tayo. May discount package na yan, Ayan, thank you kay Babe C. Thank you pa sa aking mites, my friends. Oh, by the way, yung mga Australian mites natin, meron akong new article today ang South China Morning Post, pakibasa. On Penny Wong and the Albanese administration and how they can reset their relationship with Southeast Asia and ASEAN. Alright, so may mga sinulat din tayo dyan. Alam naman tayo, international tayo. Hindi lang tayo mga Ayan na naman tayo. Ayan, ito. So pakibasa. And then, I think there's another one who's today dapat lumabas. So ito. Ito yung column ko today. So ito yung Penny Wong at saka si Prime Minister Albanese. Ginawa ng caricature. Cute yung pagkagawa ng column ko eh. So ito po yung column natin. So pakibasa, Australia. Our friends in Australia. They're looking forward to meeting Foreign Minister Penny Wong, right? Hindi ako marunong magbahasa though. Sana ganun yung mga foreign minister natin, yung marunong ng many languages, mahusay, may dating, charismatic. Alam mo si Penny Wong, yung foreign minister ng Indonesia, nung pumunta siya sa Indonesia, dinaksan siya ng tao kasi yung mga tao umakyat sa wall daw, yung mga bata, gano'n. Kasi rockstar siya eh. Tuwan-tuwa mga tao sa kanya, tapos she speaks Bahasa, respect. Dapat ganun yung mga foreign minister eh, hindi yung... Okay, ayaw ko na magsalita dun sa isang nagtutweet dyan na overrated. Okay, anyway, let's be nice. We used to have actually a high-level foreign secretary in the past, si Romulo. No, he was really Carlos P. Romulo. He was really something. High level talaga siya. Even Salvador, I'll give it to him. No, and then I don't know what happened. No offense na lang. Move forward. Next comment. All right. Hey, Foreign Secretary De Rosario also did a good job when he was there. And then God bless him, Secretary Yasa, I like him to mabait siya, in fairness. Wait lang, sorry, natanggal yung mga ito ng aeroplano ko, ayusin ko, ano, something like that. Alright, may tanong ba kayo? Ito pala, may mga tanong pala kayo dyan. Puntahan ko yung mga tanong niya, guys, ito. May mga tanong. Marami naman dyan, puro mga ano lang, nag-troll lang yata sa akin, Ito. Hi. Medyo toxic na yung politics natin. Kaya let's talk about a little bit international affairs para lang. It's still toxic but not as much. So, I don't know. How should we put it? Nasaan na? Ayan, ito. Ay, ba't nawala? Ano yung tanong sa akin kay Aimee and Reyes? Ano yun? Ano na naman? Ano yan? Kalokohan yan. Ba't di na-send yung isa? Ito. Sorry sa mga taga-YouTube. 1 second lang. Hindi ko na-send yung camera. Wala eh. Kaya wala tayong one-man team eh. Sorry. Send dito, send dyan, set up dito. Yung electricity, yung water, yung aircon, yung internet, yung wifi, lahat yan guys. Mahirap talaga guys. Ganyan talaga mga vlogger life. Vlogger life. Yan. Thank you kay Katrina. Kay Australia. Kay Sam Eel. Kay Brav Pitt. Ayan si Brav Pitt. Ayan si Brav Pitt. Bro, the name is, hindi James Bond. The name is Brav Pitt. Ayan, parang James Bond style. Ayan. Thank you kay Brav Pitt. Thank you kay Vilma. Alberto. Yan. Saan yung mga friends natin from Alberta, Canada, speaking of which. Margaret Rodriguez. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you kay Gio Tungol. Yan. Sabi naman, ano Mark Villar? Sinabi Rizal Reyes. Ayaw, no comment. Ako senator na siya. Penny Miguel. Thank you sa inyo po. Thank you rin kay Marisa. Thank you kay Rodel. Thank you kay Brav Pitt again. Active member natin yan. Yan. Thank you kay Naomi. Hi Zaddy daw. Okay. Zoe, Goko, thank you very much for support. Our mates, friends. Yep. Keith, Lorenzo, thank you for your support. Ito si Azurich, ano yan, regular din natin yan eh. Nag-order ka na, Azurich, dun sa pub natin. Ayan na, nagpaparinig na. Sir, nag-order ba kayo? Alam gano'n yung mga tambay sa coffee shop mo parate. Nag-order ka na ba? Ayan tayo eh. Ayan. Dapat may bayad yung ambience. Ayan, mga Arab jokes na naman tayo eh. Bakit mahal dito? Kasi ambience. Ay, pwede ko hindi ko i-order yung ambience. Alam mo yung mga Arab jokes? O, mamaya na tayo mag-Arab jokes. Dahil, ang pinakagrabe yung joke na, mind over body, yung with Ramos. O, mamaya na tayo. Danny, uy, dalawa sa anak na naging senador, kaya magpakabait na tayo, ha. Huwag tayong ganon. Magkapatid pa, Jingo and JV. Kaya, the best talagang Pilipinas. The best! Ayan. Sabi ni Gio, mga team late yan. Team late pero live. Late but live. So, Sunny Dianligan, thank you very much. Ayan, si Marcelino naman dito sa kabila. I read about, Marcelino, yes. Mahusay yan si Romulo. Medyo naglaro siya kasi Marcos din siya, but mahusay. Yan ang nabutan siguro ni Ma'am Carlos ng kabataan niya. Kasi si Ma'am Carlos, I think was there during the time of establishment of Foreign Service Institute, etc. So, malay mo, baka nakabutan niya yung mga yan. Yeah, nakabutan niya. She's 70 plus, right? Yeah. I'm gonna be a gentleman and not mention age. Josie. Yeah, ohayo gozaimasu. Arigato for joining us from Japan. Nippones. Okay, thank you sa mga friends natin dyan. Si Rosel naman, nagtatanong na naman kay Ai. Ano nga yung kay Reyes? Hindi ko nga alam eh. Ano yung guys? Fictional film. Ano yan? Saan na naman galing yan? So, ano naman ang role ni Tony G? Kung ano naman ipa-play ni Tony G? Imelda? Imelda. Yan, thank you kay Leia Garcia. I'm sure may movie na naman si Imelda soon. Ayan na naman tayo eh. Thank you kay Dominic, Marsigan, kay Lani Enriquez. Ayan, sabi ni Azrich, hindi pa daw siya nag-order. Kilala ko yung mga ganyan style, yung parati na sa coffee shop. Pero hindi nag-order. Pero may dalang bote na hindi mo alam anong loob, tas inom, tas good vibes na naman siya. Alam na this. Sir, may order na ba kayo? Sir, magla-lunch na. Mag-order na kayo. At yung mga ganyan style. Alam na this. Uy, daming natuwa dun sa Adidas story ko Yung kwento na, punta ka sa cousin mo, galing Australia, wow, may budget, mayaman, bigay-bigay, ganun. Tapos punta ka dyan, wow, may Adidas doon, dalawa pa yung box. For sure, sa akin yung isa. Tapos yung magbabay na kayo, hinintay mo talagang tawagin ka sa mga, oh, Richard, singing ka sa likod. Oh, can you please, in Australia, can you please throw the basura or something like that? Oh, okay, yan. Masakit yung gano'n. Tapos yung Adidas na yan, isang araw, bibiling ka ng girlfriend mo Adidas yan, pero traumatized ka. So, siyempre, yung sabi ng girl, why are you excited? Isn't that what your friend? Na, lalo mo yung cousin mo from Australia. Ayan na tayo eh. Ayan na tayo. Oh, by the way, this is not personal. Yung cousin ko sa Australia, mas bata sa akin. So, probably it works the other way in my case. Alright. Yan. Ayan, may tanong ba kayo dyan? Ayan, magbabay na tayo. Uwi na tayo. Magtrabaho pa ako. Wow, dami pang gagawin. No? Kailangan ko ng atong secretary and assistant and all. Kaso, wala, hindi pasok sa Ilocano budget natin. Mamaya yan. Isa pang tanong kay Maria Esmeralda. Sabi niya, Prof, good evening. Do you think the US is growing more and more apprehensive of the Chinese influence in the Asia-Pacific region, which could be why the US wants to secure as much closer relationship with the Philippines, especially now under new administration? Okay, simple lang sagot ko. Ang konsepto po dyan ito, classroom, is integrated deterrence. So what the US is looking for is, so what does it mean, integrated deterrence? So deterrence means you have to have sufficient military capabilities and strategic cohesion as a group to make sure others don't bully you. Integrated means US together with key allies. So may term dyan na hub and spokes. So US is the hub, and then yung spokes na yung mga regional allies. Japan, Korea, Australia, Philippines, I don't know. And then there's strategic partners which are not treaty allies. So iba po yung strategic partners sa treaty ally. Sa treaty ally, meron kayong mutual defense treaty. Attack on one is an attack on both. Strategic partners don't have that. But still, they can have very close defense cooperation relationship. So Singapore is there. India is increasingly there, although India is also playing it with Russia, with other rivals, etc. But not China. So that's why they're kind of good also with US and the Quad. Vietnam is not there yet, and I don't think they ever want to be, because Vietnam has a three no's policy. No alliances, no siding with one superpower against each other, and no foreign bases. So Vietnam has a very strict national independence policy. But we're past that point. We already have a treaty ally with the US. And then there are countries like Thailand, which are supposedly treaty ally, but they don't act like an ally. And then there are countries like Singapore, which are not an ally, but they act as if they're like an ally. That's how important they are, right? So when you talk about the importance of the Philippines, because the Philippines is one of those spokes in this bigger hub and spokes integrated deterrence strategy. So essentially the idea is that it was never a fight between China and US. It was always a fight between China and US and its regional allies put together. That is why the US still has the upper hand. Because, yes, it's true that Japan, Korea, Australia may not 100% share US position on China, but they 70% share US position on China. And that 70% might be just enough for them to be very important to US to have sufficient defensive capabilities together, defensive coverage together, to make China think twice before challenging US hegemony in this part of the world. I'm not passing a judgment. I'm saying US is good, China is bad. I'm just saying that's the point with integrated deterrence. Now, saan papasok ang Pilipinas? Medyo malabo tayo recently because of Tatag Digong and all. We'll discuss a little bit more in the tomorrow, fully God willing. But going back to this, kasi ito kaya nga yung EDCA po ang napakamahalaga. Doon natin makikita anong mangyayari. Because ang gusto ng Biden administration is, okay na yung VFA, okay na yung MDT. Although Carlos was saying something again on MDT, but Lorenzana already raised that issue. We have dapat palakasin yung MDT. So that's nothing new. Lorenzana has been already doing that.
So meaning revising certain guidelines to make sure we have more interoperability, there's more clarity on US assurances to support us kung nagkaroon ng giyera. You see, the whole point is deterrence. No one wants war. But if you have leverage, you have strong alliances and all, the other side will always think twice. So this is not games. And also preparation. Okay, in term na now, papasok yung Philippines kasi sa ilalim ng EDCA, there are two key bases that are supposed to be open to America in terms of prepositioning weaponries and also rotational military access. Bakit rotational? Dahil bawal na po yung permanent American bases sa Pilipinas. May Supreme Court ruling na po tayo dyan. Bawal na. Pero yung rotational, pwede. 50 papasok, alis sila yung 2 months, 50 papasok yun. So pwede mo sabihin medyo daya yun. But technically, it's not permanent because it's rotational access. And preposition weapons, intelligence networks, counterintelligence, electronic warfare capabilities, etc. So there are two bases. Basa Air Base, Pampanga yan. So it's I mean the closest flashpoint to that is Scarborough Shoal, just over 100 nautical miles, right? And then the other one is Bautista Air Base sa Palawan, which is napakalapit sa Kalayaan at Reed Bank. So yung dapat dalawang bases na yan ay pinabukas natin sa mga Amerikano to preposition their weaponries, do rotational access. And then the EDCA was also supposed to be a way by which we can get more advanced weaponries from Americans. Guess what? That agreement was negotiated and signed under Aquino. President Duterte kept it. There was a Supreme Court ruling on it because it was an executive agreement, not a treaty alliance, not a treaty which has to go through Senate. But Duterte did not fully implement it because for a long time now, there are some debates about what's happening now. I have some friends who have confidential information or are saying, I don't agree with you, Richard, 100%. I don't know. I have to confirm it myself. But at least I know in the first few years of President Duterte, he was preventing the Americans from getting full access to those bases base sa terms ng EDCA. And I'm sure in a way that was President Duterte's way of being nice to China, probably. Didn't want to provoke them, etc. And then later, threatened pa yung VFA, etc. Now, I'm gonna post you some articles by some very known experts on yung EDCA delays and how the delays in the implementation of EDCA because of Tatay Digong actually weakened our position in terms of developing integrated deterrence against against China, sorry. And in that sense, both US and the Philippines lost. That could be one argument. But the counter argument is that, well, President Duterte is making sure we're not overly dependent on America. We have national autonomy. This is our independent foreign policy. So I don't know. What is your priority? Semantics or priorities defending the West Philippine Sea? You know what I'm saying? Kaya nga batid dyan, minsan nagkakaano rin ako kay Calyodi because yung mga position ni Calyodi are more like estudyanteng aktivista than a really well thought out foreign policy. On other things, I'm with Calyodi. I think he has very good points on labor rights, etc. But on foreign policy, medyo sophomoric yung point of view. But I'll go to Professor Carlos also ideas on our foreign policy, etc., and MDT and all in our next meetings because I also feel they're more semantics than actually multi-layered analysis. And I showed you in the last meeting, like, yung term na neutrality doesn't mean nothing, right? Doesn't mean nothing. And like Latino, it doesn't mean nothing, amigo. You know what I'm saying? Because how can you talk about neutrality when you're already allied with US? US already has sanctions on Russia, so we cannot get weapons from them without risking sanctions. We already had 2 or 3 votes in a UN. We didn't abstain. We actually voted in favor of Ukraine. So what are we talking about here? Right? Hindi pwede semantics lang, yung posturing lang eh. Diba? You have to really properly analyze what's the situation. Based on the situation, what is the best calibrated, optimal approach we can have? That's how you do proper geopolitical analysis, right? Not yung mga semantics lang. Oh, we'll be neutral, we'll be blah, blah, blah. No, you have to really break it down. At yun ang problema, napakababa yung level of discussion sa ating bansa. Even more on geopolitics. Puro na lang semantics and all. Hindi pa talaga na-break down itong mga yung mga pasikot-sikot eh. Kasi multiple dimensions to eh. Kaya nga, remember guys, yung term na ginamit ko, di ba? I got it from Robert Kaplan. Great guy. It's a 3-dimensional chess game, right? So the problem with many people is they talk about these issues as if it's just a one-dimensional thing. Like US, China, saan tayo, tataya. Like, that's a ridiculous way of thinking, right? And we're technically not a neutral country. We're not Finland, although Finland wants to join NATO. We're not Switzerland, okay? Let's not kid ourselves. We are already a treaty ally of US, and we already have territorial disputes, not with US, but with China. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, kaya yun ang problema. Okay, some people talk as if none of these things exist when there's a whole layers of legal strategic linkages that are pre-existing. You cannot just forget about them and wish them away. You operate within what you're given. So we have to first identify what is our geopolitical given, and then from that, we proceed where we can get at to defend our national interest. All right? Don't worry, we'll discuss this more, but I hope in some small ways, ito yung mga discussion natin dito, give you an idea of how to properly do geopolitical analysis. All right? Just the right method or approach, right? So, sa philosophy science, ang term natin dyan, epistemology. What to know, how to know about something, right? So this is what, so medyo epistemological approach natin dito. Alright, okay, I've talked too much. Alright, thank you very much dun sa mga tanong nyo. Ayan na, mga friends natin dyan sa YouTube, friends natin dyan sa Facebook, ayan mga Kafuego, Kameta, Team Alive, Team Live, Team Late Live, Team Hindi Nag-order na sa kape shop. Hindi pa rin nag-order yung isa, parati dito eh. Ayan tayo eh. Kung may Patreon account lang sana eh. Yun, nagparinig na naman, walang ya. Di sana hindi lang ako nag-3-in-1 lang. Pero malakas na, baka hindi na ako makatulog, no? Alright, wala ba kayong tanong dyan? Tuloy pa natin bukas yan, ha? We're gonna talk about Quirino. We're gonna talk about Claro M. Recto. We're gonna talk about Manuel Quezon. We're gonna talk about Rojas, first President Manuel Rojas post-war. We're gonna talk about Marcos Sr. We're gonna talk about Duterte. We're gonna talk about these people, guys, because isa rin problema sa atin is hindi natin naintindihan yung sarili nating kasaysayan. Hindi natin kilala yung sarili natin mga presidente. Hindi natin alam yung mga pinagsasabi ng mga presidente natin dati. Kaya kung ano-anong sinasabi natin sa presidente natin ngayon. Ay, parang talagang malakas yung kape, no? Biglang bumilis yung aking Tagalog. Medyo konyo, pero mabilis. Right? Medyo konyo, pero mabilis. Yan, okay. Alright. Thank you very much din kay Victoria D. Ayan, Team Live. Sa mga Team Live, Team Late, Team Hindi Nag-order sa coffee shop kanina umaga pa. Ayan. Salamat ha. Thank you very much. Nag-guilty yung isa. Yung mga Di ba may gano'n yung parati na sa coffee shop, hindi nag-order. Tapos, nagpaparinig na yung waitress, Sir, lunchtime na, ano? Ano yung gano'n yung mga buhay estudyante, gawain din namin yan sa UPville. Siyempre, baon mo, ano lang eh. Ubus na yung baon mo sa, alam na this, bili ng PS3 games, mga matanda na ako kaya yung mga PS3 games pa nun, hindi man lang PS4, di ba? Ubus na, kaya, saan tayo guys? Doon tayo sa UPville. Saan? Yung katabi ng Ababo, doon tayo dyan. Wala akong pang ano. Okay lang, isa lang sa atin mag-order, 4 tayo dyan. May aircon, maganda, gano'n, may music. Sige. So, 4 kayo dyan, isa lang nag-order. Yung babae pa, walang iya. Walang iya, puro ayan tayo. 4 na oras na kami dyan, ang ingay-ingay. Wala na, nag-ano na yung may-ari na ganan-ganan. Sir, may order ba kayo dyan? Magdi-dinner na. Hindi, okay pa yung kape ni ano. Okay pa yung kape ni Camille. Diba, Camille, okay pa yung kape? Ayan na yung mga buhay UP, guys. Ito. Meron ka na lang pang ikot jeep pa uwi, pabalik, tapos nakikiride ka pa. Ayan. Ayoko na baka blurt out yung mga, baka maglaglag tayo ng tao. Mahirap na. Pero guys, alam niyo yung style na gano'n, yung mga boy libre. Ang tawag dyan, boy libre. Yung parating na sa coffee shop, never nag-order. Pero, parating may mga energy juice dun sa bag niya. Kaya tuloy-tuloy yung pag-aaral niya, naglalabas nga eh. Ano yung mag-cork fee ba yan? Ang tawag doon? Yung nagdadala ka ng sariling drink dahil magbayad ka. Wala kasing ganun eh. Ay, yung mga tabi-tabi coffee shop, walang ganun yung magdadala ka ng sarili mo. Uno ka na ano. Di, okay pa kami. Okay pa yung kape ni Camille. Okay po, thank you po ha. Ganda ng aircon dito, no? Tapos pabalik-balik yung ibang customer, tapos andun pa rin. Tapos kinuha mo pa yung pinakamagandang pwesto, pare, yung pinaka-best. Nakatapat yung aircon sa'yo. Tapos pag view mong gano'n, ang ganda ng sunset, ang ganda ng sunrise, ayan. Kung may maganda na darating, talagang nasa ano ka, angle ka, makikita ka na. Siyempre, guwapings pa tayo nun eh. Matanda na, zadi na ako, yan. You get what I'm saying? Alam mo na yan, Aso Rich, gawain din namin yan. Gawain din namin yan sa UPville dati eh. Kaya medyo notorious ako eh. Hindi naman. Parang, hindi ba ikaw yung tambay sa ano namin? Ate ko niyan, biglang na-recognize. Wait lang, Prof, di ba ikaw yung
O hindi nga ako nag-aral dun eh. Exchange student lang ako. Hindi, exchange student lang ako sa UP, di nga ako pumunta dun. Ayan na. Nag-effect na yung 3-in-1 ko. Nakikita nyo talaga eh, immediately iba yung tone, no? Ayan, thank you very much, salamat. Kaya mga team libre, baka naman, lunchtime na. Ayan na, alright? Team. Grabe naman si Mitch. Team Kapal. I didn't even bother to go to Starbucks because there was no way I would pay 250 pesos for a coffee. It's like, what? I'm not gonna pay 250 pesos. I put ilan on. Tapos ipan, ay, pwede ng PS3 CD. Pag limang kape. Ganun. I said, seriously, for a long time, I could not understand why would people. Ayan na, baka magalit na. Ayan na, ako nagsalita ako. Okay na. But you get what I'm saying? Ganun ako. Promise. Talagang, I had to wrap my head around it. 250 pesos for a drink, di ba? Lalo yung mga friends namin, mga taga Araneo, alam mo dun sa Katipunan, di ba mayroong Starbucks doon, tapos may McDonald's ganyan. Wag bro, pang gimmick na lang natin yan, 250 bro, ano yan, pwede natin dyan sa Drews. Yung mga ganun yung sinasabi ng iba doon. Doon na lang tayo. Di bro, kailangan ko magkape kasi may overnight study kami, ganun, yan. Or minsan, bibili ka ng isang kape, tapos kuha ka ng maliit na tatlo, tapos share ka yung gano'n. Pero syempre, ikaw kukunin mo yung may cream na sa top. Ayan na! Okay na, tama na, okay na. Ayan na. Baka wala na kayong respeto sa akin after ito. Pero guys, yan ang buhay estudyante. Yan. You know what? I really appreciate those years I studied in UP kasi doon natauhan talaga ako eh. Kasi mga first days, para akong taga-Ateneo. Ang kinis-kinis, ang ganda ng nagchichinelas pa ako, ang puti-puti yung paa. Wala, tapos binubuli ka lang ng mga kaklase mo, sama ng tingin sa'yo. Ayan na, after 3 years, mga boy libre na yung mga style. Yan, mga first years lang, medyo, parang, hindi ka taga UP eh, parang taga Araneo. Kala mo yung parang gano'n mga konyo sa UP. Parang gano'n. Pero yung third year, wala na. Boy libre. Boy libre. Kaya dyan, yung mga boy libre dyan, alam na this. Gawain din namin yan. Those were the days. Tapos Starbucks, uy, laki nun bro, baka ma-hyper ka dyan. Ang tawag doon, hyperventilate. Hindi, ano ka ba? Grabe ka naman, Di ba, hindi maganda yan, yung caffeine. Share natin, no? Tapos ikaw, una para may cream ka pa dun sa taas, di ba? Tapos sa loob, di ba, libre yung sugar, ganun. Punta ka sa loob, lagay ka ng cream mo. Uy, libre na. Uy, libre na, lagay mo na. Ayan, tapos parang yung kape niya, ganyan lang, yung sugar niya, ganyan. Kaya ang dami mo ng energy until the next day. Siyempre, paano yun? Bata ka, di ba? Your body can break down sugar. Ngayon, of course, medyo scary na, di ba? Kaya, yan guys, mga boy iwas, boy libre. Salamat dyan. Thank you kay Jeja. Alam mo, minsan, I don't know why you're even watching this meta. I think you're watching this meta not for the meta, but what comes after the meta. Yung mga nagwawala na ako ng ganyan. Ayan na naman tayo. Ay, may tanong si Gab. ASEAN, okay na kasi yung EU, medyo strict standards. Ay, may mga tanong pala tayo dito. Ang dami mga seryoso Tim Hortons of Starbucks. Walang yung mga tanong dito Parang yung mga taga-YouTube mas balahura. Bakit kaya? Buti pa itong mga kameta ko dito mabait. Itong mga ka-YouTube ko mga balahura talaga. Ano na, okay, karamihan naman hindi democratic yung values. Tama yung point mo sa EU, Gab, no? Ang thing ko lang is, we're not Europe Iba yung talagang background natin and all. But, we still can learn best practices. Hindi naman kailangan, may sinabi nga ni Bismarck, yung German leader, like, parang essentially said, only the ignoramos will learn from their own experiences. If you're smart, you will learn from other people's experiences, including their mistakes and what they got right. So in the same way, we don't need to go through 2 world wars and all that 30 years war, 100 years war for us to be like EU. But at the same time, we cannot be exactly like EU because we have very, very different attributes. And lastly, I want to emphasize the EU is a supranational organization, meaning a degree of sovereignty was transferred to the central bureaucracy in Brussels, while ASEAN is just I call it a small and medium enterprise without human rights, right? There's a small HQ, andun lang sa Jakarta, yung ASEAN headquarters. Budget lang niya, siguro wala pang $100 million yan, di ba? Yung budget ng EU is $100 billion noon pa, di ba? So ngayon, mga hundreds of billions of euros na yan, no? So we're completely incomparable. It's supranational versus supranational organization. So you'll get those terms when you study international relations and international law. All right? Okay. Ayaw na pag-usapan ng Brexit kasi pag-usapan na natin si Boris Johnson. Ayan.
Okay? Thank you very much, guys. Ayan, sabi ni Madrigal, you look yayamanin, pero yung pala kuripot. That's how you do it. You look rich, but you don't spend. That's like the best way to have it, you know? Like, ano yung parang pagkasama kayo, tapos pupunta yung waiter, maglalagay ng yung bill, tapos syempre tinitingnan yung pinakamukhang mag-afford. Tapos mukhang, ayan na, yung tingin niya napunta sa akin, parang magaganon na ako, hindi ako magbabayad dyan. Or mga style dyan, alam mo, biglang darating waiter, biglang lahat nagsi-CR. Oy bro, CR muna ako ah. Oy bro, sisigarilyo ako. Oy bro, tumawag yung nanay ko ah. Ayan na naman, meron din kaming pangalan dyan. Mga boy takas. Pag panahon ng bayaran, biglang si alisan na lahat. Dalawa na lang natitira parat. Alam mo na yan, cousin! Hindi ko na sabihin which cousin. Alam mo na, yung mga the moves, boy takas. Boy libre, boy takas. Ito yung mga dalawa. Ang ngayon naman, boy tamad. Naku na, yung boy tamad nagiging ano pa. Ayaw ko na magsalita. Alright! Thanks, guys! Ano sabi ni ano? Walang hiya tong Eugene na to. Kung naging babae ako, liligawan ko si Prof. Walang hiya talaga kayo. I'm telling you guys, mga boy tamad, wala kami boy tambay. In fairness, masipag kami mag-aaral. Lahat naman nag-graduate eh. Boy takas, yung tatakas kayong bila, tsaka boy libre, yung 4 hours ka sa coffee shop, pero nakikiusok ka lang doon sa drinks ni Camille na 4 hours na. Tapos, uy, wag mo ubusin yung kape. Sip-sip mo na konti. Meron ako dito. 3 mo lang. Huwag mo ubusin, ma-order tayo dyan eh. Kailangan ko na mag-aral ka na. Huwag mo ubusin. Pag inubos mo yan, papa-orderin tayo. Huwag mo ubusin yung kape na yan. Ganun lang. Lagay mo ng sugar yan. Sugar rush na lang yan. Huwag na caffeine. Sugar rush, mas healthy yan. Ayan tayo. Meron akong brown sugar. Ano yan? Low ano yan? Ano yan? Huwag mo ubusin yung kape. Huwag mo ubusin. Ayan tayo. Yan. Tapos para kang British royalty. Sip ng ano. Ganun. Ganun kasi kung iubos mo, mag-order na tayo. Alright! Bago mapaya pa tayo sa mga gawain namin sa UP Village dati, pasensya na. Honestly, hindi ko na maalala yung mga pangalan ng mga coffee shop na yan dahil I think ang tawag dyan selective memory dahil kinakaya mong sarili mo at ginagawa mo. Basta alam nila yan kung sino kayo. Alright? Kung may naalala ko na medyo konyo na madaldal na ako na yon. Alright? Thank you very much guys. God bless. Talk to you soon. Ay, andito pa pala kayo. Ayan, thank you very much guys. Talk to you soon too. Ayan talaga. Paano to? Buti nakita ko kayo.